Chinese car owners have been receiving a mix of good and bad news in the past months. During the first week of October, the government announced it would eliminate toll fees during the week-long National Day holiday. A record number of drivers took to the roads, giving a much-needed boost to the domestic tourism industry and causing a string of massive traffic jams in the process. Before the holiday week came to an end, Chinese media reported that a vehicle emissions tax would likely be implemented following the 18th National Party Congress. Now the government has started to talk about transferring the fuel consumption tax from refiners to consumers. According to Guangzhou Daily, an official from the State Administration of Taxation announced at an industry conference that the central government is planning to reform fuel consumption tax. Currently, domestic oil and gas refiners such as China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, and China Petroleum Chemical Corporation, Sinopec, pay the fuel tax. But the government is considering plans to transfer this cost directly to consumers. Like the vehicle emissions tax, the new policy would be piloted in select cities before being expanded nationwide. According to China.com, the current fuel consumption tax came into effect 3 years ago. In January 2009, fuel consumption tax was raised from 0.2 RMB to 1 RMB per liter, the equivalent of 60 cents per gallon. For diesel fuel, the tax was raised from 0.1 RMB to 0.8 RMB per liter, or 50 cents per gallon. According to data from the Ministry of Commerce, during the first half of this year, domestic output of gasoline and diesel reached 38 and 76 million metric tons, respectively. China's two dominant oil refiners, CNPC and Sinopec, paid a total of $20 billion in fuel consumption tax. If this cost was to be transferred to China's 236 million drivers, each driver would have to pay about $85 per half year. According to Guangzhou Daily, during the 2009 fuel consumption taxation reform, the central government levied the tax on refiners rather than consumers because it was more convenient from an administrative perspective. This is because 90% of Chinese petroleum resources are controlled by two state-owned companies, CNPC, which runs PetroChina, and Sinopec. The Guangzhou Daily points out, however, that the downside of levying the tax during the oil refining process is that the tax would squeeze profits for oil producers, discouraging refiners from producing as much oil as they can. However, levying the tax on consumers has the obvious downside of pushing up administrative costs. China has hundreds of thousands of gas stations throughout the country. A new consumer tax would be much harder to monitor and control than collecting straight from the refiners. And there's a deeper risk the government runs by transferring the burden of the tax. Because CNPC and Sinopec essentially hold a monopoly in the oil and gas market in China, there's a chance that the two companies choose not to lower the wholesale fuel prices, despite being exempt from the tax. In this case, consumers could find themselves bearing an even heavier burden at the pumps.